Hello and welcome to CrossCode any percent, a run that has went through very recent changes at the time of this video recording. Now, there's a lot to explain for this run, so try to bear with me and allow me to get right into this. A discovery by Blue Cheetah found that if you store a save prompt while loading a file from the main menu and save, the game will give you a file with a level 1 Leah with no equipment, no credits, but with all the abilities and elements unlocked. At first, this was great, as this allowed us to skip going to the temples and retrieve these elements, and instead just go straight to the final dungeon. However, what I found is that you can transfer these properties to Shizuka in the prologue, and bring her into the main game. Why is this important? Well, Shizuka in the prologue has about level 70 stats. If we can retain these stats, this would make the rest of the fights in the game a whole lot faster. So, in order to bring Shizuka into the main game, we need to first get the ability to save the game. You cannot save during the prologue. You are only allowed to save until after you do the shooting tutorial here, and gain control of Leah. Now before we bring Shizuka into the main game, we're going to make two saves, one here and one in the next room called Cargo Hold 1. Now to store a save prompt, we need to go into the save menu and confirm and exit at the same time, and now we can move around with the save prompt in front of our face. We're going to store two of those and go into a new game in the prologue, move into the next area and make a save. Then we're going to make a blank save, and once we reload that blank save, if we walk into a prologue event, we turn into Shizuka with all the abilities unlocked. So we can use character menus, quick menu, and saving as Shizuka. So after we complete this battle, we're going to do a trick called Back in Time. What Back in Time basically is once you store a load prompt from the main menu, you delay the loading of that file that you selected, and you can continue and use another file while delaying that same file load. So if you go onto a Shizuka file and load into the other file, you can pretty much take the position of Shizuka's location and put it into the next file's location. So we can put Shizuka onto the ship, into Cargo Hold 1. So there's a whole lot of things happening at this moment, but I'm going to try to explain this as best as I can. For now, I'm going to explain save warping. When you store a save prompt and save on a loading screen, you store the exit you just went through. When you load the file back up again, the game will try to put you at the corresponding exit name of that room. For here, we saved while going through a door marked End Door, so the game will put us at the door of the next room marked End Door. This process will be repeated throughout the run, though with some variations here and there. I'll explain those later as they are performed, but let's move on for now. One thing about Shizuka I need to explain is that even though she has high level stats, she can only perform one art in the game, and that is neutral spin dance. You can only perform it while in heat, so it can be a bit awkward at times when trying to deal with the weaknesses of enemies. But for some reason, this spin dance is the heightened version of the current one in the game. It does a massive amount of damage. Alright, for this trick here, we're going to store a save prompt while Carla is going to take us up the elevator, but when her dialogue ends, we're going to save and reload it so we can use the elevator however way we want. So we're just going to start the event for Jet's tutorial for guarding. For the screen, our guard is disabled, but we will gain control of it again when Jet allows us to. So no guarding the first flurry, unfortunately. Now for the fight for this tutorial, you only need to deal about 1400 damage to make the next cutscene trigger. But if you kill it by doing 1500 damage, the game will just crash, because it doesn't expect you to kill the turrets. Now for the crab boss. It has 3 different attacks it could do, but if you stand behind it, it only does the jump attack. So we're just going to keep it doing this fast attack until it gets vulnerable. And we're just going to end this fight right away, since Shizuka is super buff. Now there is an escape sequence at this part, but we're going to perform another back in time by utilizing the one save we made at the teleporter room. So we're just going to take the Shizuka's position at the current save and put it into the teleporter room. Back in time only changes your location, nothing else. Alright, so you've been seeing some other tricks that I haven't explained yet. The one in this screen that we've been using is called infinite dashing. If you guard between dashes, it refreshes the amount of dashes you can do, so you can just dash infinitely. And to make those long jumps to cross large gaps, they're called long jumps to us in our community. If you just perform an action while in mid-air, like aiming, guarding, or meleeing, you can dash cancel it to extend that jump even further. Here we're just going to save word past this room since we already have the abilities. For that ability in that room, that was the quick menu, but we already have that menu because of blank save. Here we're going to do 2 long jumps and hit that switch twice and dash past the block to make this cycle. This room you could actually make 2 long jumps to get to the other side. It's a little bit faster, but you can just do a save warp here just to ease the difficulty of this run. You can make this long jump here just to skip the 2 battles here, or you could just do another save warp. Whatever's to your preference. Here we're going to make a very precise shot to hit the bottom switch here to skip the bottom half. And we're going to store this exit label here, which is door, well no, it's the ends. It's marked as ends for the next room coming up here as also marked as ends. The metal room's exit for the teleporter is marked as door west, so it doesn't work properly. So we have to store the one from upper path 3. These exit points are the same though, so it's a normal save warp. Now for the fights. Now for the next part. We're going to make a save here for a trick coming up later on. It's going to come up soon, don't worry, but that save is important, keep in mind of it. Because when you grab an ability in these ability rooms in Rama's dungeon, it gets rid of your other elements. So we don't want that to happen. So what we're going to do is set up a save to back in time past these rooms so we can keep our elements on a file that already still has them. So just take this sky bridge and save here and do the back in time. Now, because the save that still has our elements did not do the Apollo cutscene where he accuses us of being a cheater, the game gets confused when taking the cross-central balcony teleporter and thinks that we're playing on an earlier version or build of the game, so the game tries to update our save and puts us at the correct story point, but we're just going to say no to that. We're going to first grab some items here that's going to be used for a glitch later on. These items are called spicy buns. There are 6 of them, but they're worth 100 credits each. For here, we're going to do a save word, but these exit points do not match correctly, so the game just puts us at a default position, which is pretty much the first entity of the map JSON file, which is pretty much the sky bridge to the endgame area, Rhombus Square. So we have access to endgame gear, but we need money first. So what we're going to do here is an infinite money glitch, which is pretty much goes over the limits of how much we can sell an item. So we can just sell as much as we want. So we're going to go up until we can sell 2 of these Rising Superstars. So we can increase the rate of how much money we can acquire. We're going to do this until we get to about 700,000 K, so we can get 2 werewolf sticks, which helps with our balance problems to keep us from overloading as much. And we're going to get spicy beetle types, 21 of them actually, which pretty much is a 50% increase in damage for melees. Very useful for the final dungeon. But the leftover money that we'll be spending is all for laser gear. Yes, level 59 gear on top of our level 70 statted Shizuka. But we're not going to equip them yet because we need our stats low enough for a trick coming up here called the Autumn's Fall Damage Boost. we're going to actually skip doing the cutscene to grab Emily into our party. Just going to save work past the Arms of Rise barrier. And since there's an exit going from Arms Rise to Arms Fall, we're just going to make use of that. Come up here for the damage boost. Now when a Hellcat is going to do their charge attack, when they try to uppercut you, you need to be knocked back enough so it goes past the trigger for the game where it tries to give you access denied and pull you back, just straight into the exit. So we can skip a huge part of the game here. So now we're pretty much in a Chapter 7 area while we're still in Chapter 3. Gonna do some circuits here, only on neutral and heats. Neutral circuits actually apply to every other element by 50% of the stats it's applying in neutral. So, since we can't use any other arts, we're just gonna focus on damage and equip our laser gear. We will be doing some XP grinding here and there just to keep on gaining more and more attack stats. It's always nice to kill things a little bit faster. And this quest is always open, no matter what chapter you're on. Just as long as you're on a chapter previous to when it's supposed to be available. Now in other categories, you used to be able to use a cold throw art called Hail Flurry, which made hitting those switches a lot easier, but I can do just fine without it. Now for the next screen, if you run up to the Frobbit too fast before the cutscene hits, it won't be in the correct position, so we're just going to kill this seahorse and walk a little bit slow towards the Frobbit. So if you run up to it too fast, it'll be soft locked because the Frobbit's just running into a wall repeatedly. This Frobbit's trigger is actually low enough to where if you long jump from this rock, you can actually activate it and move on up to the exit. Eastern exit. Again, we're going to do a little bit of grinding here, just move to the next level. This seahorse somehow lives. I didn't expect it, so unfortunately it costed me some time. Unfortunately. However, these fights are all required here, but they're very easy to take care of. Sweet, sweet revenge for all those Hellcats that annoyed us. Now, when those bulls stomp, they actually leave themselves open to quickly get behind them and hit their weak point. Be taking advantage of that and the trio of bull fights coming up here. We're actually going to skip the seahorse fights by doing a triple long jump, which is pretty much a long jump that utilizes 3 dashes to cross a gap. Just go straight from here to that platform. Can be a little bit finicky to get down, but we're just going to set up this block for some platforming later on. If you look closely, Shizuka actually gains a ponytail. A little bit weird, but you know, we're not supposed to have Shizuka here after all. We're not going to trigger the bullfight right now. We're going to hit the switch first because we're going to be on the lower elevation and it's faster to hit this to use on later. And since we have to wait for the bulls to do something to hit them, we're going to eat a spicy beetle type. We don't need it for this fight, the spicy beetle type, but the hologram Frobbit fight, it's pretty useful for that fight. Since our damage is super buffed, especially with 50% extra increased damage, this fight is pretty much a joke. As soon as you break him for moving on to the next phase, you can just do a spin dance and just instantly kill him. And that is the Autumn's Fall section of the game. So since we're on Chapter 3, on in Chapter 7 area, the game is going to get confused since you're not supposed to be at this story point yet. Now on other categories, they would actually make use of the suffix to go to Bakikum, which is the city located in Maroon Valley. But since we already have all the elements, we're just going to go straight to do the Parrot Island raid. So we're going to talk to our First Scholars HQ buddies, which we aren't really buddies yet in this category. But, you know, timey-wimey stuff. Now, I know what you might be thinking. There's a barrier there that we still haven't lowered, but if you're on a chapter that's after the point you're supposed to lower these, this barrier is not actually active. Just walk right on through. Now we're going to make our way onto the Parrot Island raid. The whole next section of Parrot Islands is pretty much an auto-scroller, but on the way to Parrot Islands, which is the cave parts, after you do the very, very complicated block puzzle, you could actually do some save warps to save a bit of time on the second screen of the cave. I just don't do it because I don't really care for it. It saves a very small amount of time. You save warp right here. You can actually walk on these stalagmites. I'm still not sure. Don't have to go all the way around. And now we can start the raid. Now for the first few screens you have to kill some enemies. We're going to eat a spicy beetle type just to speed up that process, because when you have party members, your damage... Well, actually there's some weird scaling problem where now you're doing less damage because you have party members, so... Eating that spicy beetle type brings you back up to normal damage. Or at least about. Now for this next screen, I'm going to set my party members to do nothing. I set it here because they don't walk right into the Hellcats and cause them to run away. Instead, they just stay out for longer. So I can kill these and start the next set of blocks for this part of the game. Now it doesn't matter how fast you kill these blocks. You have to wait until your guild party members on the other side of the islands finish off this set of blocks before you actually defeat the next set of blocks. Just make sure you kill the second block of that set before the finish off their set of blocks. This whole thing is basically on a timer. We're not going to set our party members to offensive. They're actually really low leveled. They actually die to one hit, pretty much. And that's actually not good, because them dying is actually bad for a later section that I'll explain later on. But these rooms basically just involve you having to kill the enemies for the blocks to spawn. And that's pretty much it. This will continue for another 2 screens, so I'll just stay calm here, relax. Alright, for the next screen, you get to choose which set of blocks you want to start on first. It doesn't matter which order of blocks you want to start on. What matters is having your party members alive. Citron and Emily has to be alive in order to call out the set of blocks to the other guild members so they can start that same set of blocks. So if you have them on do nothing, they actually try to run away from you and give you space. So they actually give enough space to where it's actually far enough to not get hit by the pillar's attacks. So if they get too close, just run towards them. Make sure they're not going to get hurt. And that would be the last screen of this Para Island raid. Yeah, if your party members actually die before the next set of blocks is called out, you actually have to wait until they respawn. So it causes quite a bit of time loss if you're not prepared for it. Now for this fight, it's not actually a fight, but really you just need to put your health down to 0 in order to start the impossible challenge where this blue avatar guy just tries to dash at you. But we're just going to let him dash at us and abduct us, since that is just fast. More fast at least. So now here we are in Vermilion Wastelands. This is actually the crux of this category. We're going to do some circuits here since we're now going to get into some fights that actually require the other elements, and actually these enemies do need to take quite a bit of damage before they can get taken down. We're just going to focus on damage mostly since we can't use any other arts. Balance here and there helps. I forgot to switch to the attack and shooter node for wave. If you're gonna run this, please switch to that. So now, Vermilion Tower, that exit is actually active past the guards. We can actually just save warp stack to that exit. So we're just gonna set that up real quick here. Exit north. And now we have gotten into Vermilion Tower. Now we're going to get out of Vermilion Tower. So we're going to set this up by using the previous safe warp stack that we made before and just back in time into that position. Now when you leave Vermilion Tower 1, the game actually sets a flag for Vermilion Tower 2 to be active. So you just walk right into the final dungeon right here. So here you should be eating a spicy beef type since these enemies are actually requiring a little bit more hits than usual. The viruses that spawn, the masters, their shields aren't actually active, so you can keep them stun locked the whole way through. Straight to death. You can see how much overload Shizuka takes. You really don't have a lot of balance here. Now for these rooms, you can save warp past them, but it's a little bit complicated on doing so. Either it takes too much time to set it up, or it's just straight up inconsistent. So we're just going to do the first room as intended, then save warp past the next one since the exit names do correspond with each other here. We're going to eat a werewolf stick here because we have to shoot this thing a lot, and so we get pretty close to overloading. This is the only solo turret that we're going to fight in this category. The reason is because the door to the exit of this room is the only one that's unlocked in these turret rooms. The other turret rooms we can just save where it passed and just skip them. This one we have to do. So first we just set up a break for a second time before we grab the medallion. And so when we break him again after we grab the medallion, it just spawns the same one. So basically skipping the second phase. Here we're going to store this exit point and take it into the first room of the cold section, so we can skip that one. And since the door is unlocked in this turret room, we're just going to save warp straight to that exit. Now the main enemy that spawns after killing these shredders is a failed rhino, I believe it's called. You can actually keep it in stun lock if you stand behind it right when it spawns, and you can just one-cycle it straight to death. Now again, you could save where it past this room, but it takes a little bit too much to set up. I'm just gonna do it by its intended route. Now, the default location for the main hub here is actually the shock exit, so we're just going to set up that save warp here. Go straight to this default position. But first, accidentally pressing new game. Don't do that. And for the next fights, the main enemy that spawns after these ones is what I like to call Dice Head. The Dice Head actually can be stun locked straight from 0 to death right when it spawns, but your dash cancels need to be really on point in order to accomplish that, but otherwise it's pretty easy. But after half health, after they go out their shields, they go for an escape roll, which is that white flashing thing. If you hit them during that, they'll just go into another invulnerable state. So here we're just going to eat another werewolf stick because again, we have to break another turret. It takes quite a bit of shots. We're only going to go through this room clockwise once. Normally you're supposed to go through this twice, but since we spawn the same medallion twice, we can just kill this turret right away. And when a turret is killed, it spawns a medallion that you can just keep on using over and over, so just keep on one-cycling all these turrets here. Now for the final puzzle. Just a long part of just chasing this ball around this room. We've tried certain ways of just trying to speed this whole process up, but the only way we know how to get through this puzzle is just doing it the intended way. And now for the final gauntlet. Now it's basically on a timer, but you have to kill a certain enemy before the next set of enemies appear. For here, you just need to kill this cold shredder to spawn the failed rhino. And then after that, you just need to kill the cold shredder that appears after the wave shredder here to spawn the next trio of shredders. Then after this set of shredders, it's kill the wave, yeah, I believe it's the wave shredder that appears to spawn the dice head guy. Shock guy. Again, does not matter how fast you kill this thing in this final gauntlet. You just need to kill the final heat shredder that appears before, right when it spawns, pretty much. Just make sure all the enemies are dead at this point here. And now for the designer, part 1 of the final boss. We're just going to utilize the amount of wait time we had there, just by eating another spicy beetle type. Now there's some RNG involved with this fight. Really, it's just dealing with having to have him on a heat bubble or a heat shield, so it can utilize the iron stance that's on the cold circuits, where you don't take any knockback or flinching if you take 4% damage. If you take damage, it's 4% of your max health, I mean. I get to only showcase this about twice. It's just this first section before he goes for the trial parts, where he gives you a huge bubble that you need to break before he spawns the orb. You can go for the same element twice in a row. Again, it's all about making use of that heat shield, so you can break that quite fast. You need to be wary about overloading though, so don't be using the same elements. Go on neutral and shoot his shields. As long as you're doing damage to an enemy, it will lower your overload gauge. But for the rest, we're just doing this fight as intended. On other categories, there are ways to skip the phases, but that requires other uses of arts that we don't have access to. Once this guy goes on the next heat shield, that will properly showcase how good the iron stance on cold is. But the rest is self-explanatory pretty much. Now there is a spot in front of the designer when he's throwing out those walls of orbs. There's a very specific place where you can just stand there and slash his face, but it can be a little bit awkward to accomplish at times. I just don't go for it, since I need to be careful about not overloading anyways. Come very close here. I tried to attempt going for the position, but getting knocked away doesn't really end up costing much time anyways. And now on to the creator. Now for part 1 of the creator, where you don't have to multiply your damage, the main part is getting to break his chunk. Now when he's in the vulnerable state after you break his fists, the amount of break you do is based on how much damage you're doing. So because Spin Dance does so much damage, it does a whole lot of break. And you just want to focus his face down with Spin Dance, since of course it does a whole lot of damage, especially with Spicy Beetle type. Definitely make use of Spicy Beetle types for these parts here. Besides getting to the breaking points, the rest of the fight is pretty much a auto-scroller. There's not much else you can really do. On other categories, of course, there are ways to skip these phases. There are really cool different ways of skipping these phases. About 3 total at the moment. Now for the ascending phase, or what I like to call the ascending phase. Just need to match your attack multiplier up to the boss HP multiplier at the top right of the game screen. Otherwise, you're really just on rails at this point. You don't want to break him at this point since your attack multiplier is still not high enough, but definitely want to build up that break meter just to set up for the actual part where you want to start damaging him. Now, for the puzzle phases of the boss, depending on how fast you break the this attack, it will change how many attacks he does in this charge up points here. I did this break so fast that he only does 1, so you can keep an eye on when you break him. There's a strength counter. That one was 1 out of 5, so once one attack goes out, just eat a Spicy Beetle type. Make use of your time. Stand right on top of that platform when it rises to easily send that ice disc right into the orb. Still don't have our attack multiplier up high enough. Just set up that break. Rinse and repeat for the next forms. We're going to allow ourselves to get hit by this explosion just to get to this weak point faster. Now Spin Dance, even though we're performing on heat, it's still a neutral, so it has no elemental modifications, just straight neutral damage. Now the reason why I'm dashing away when I break those puzzle sections is to grab all the orbs at relatively the same time so that the slowdown isn't as intense and costs like small amounts of time. Just doing as much as I can to save time in this fight. And yeah, since our stats are incredibly high, you don't actually have to worry about dying in this fight. You have to be really, really bad to die on this fight in this category. I'm actually still just dodging these attacks so I don't fall into bad habits when I'm running the other categories, since dying on this boss is a whole lot more likely. And time will be on the final hit of the final boss. Time 43:44. There is still room for time improvements here. I'm not particularly interested in doing so, but I highly recommend any beginners to try this category out. It is an extremely easy one to learn. The glitches that you have to learn in this category are actually easily teachable. You can easily learn it in one day. But for this is for the experience is over. Now, other tidbits I should inquire on in case you do want to start speedrunning this category. Not inquire on, but, you know, teach you. But one glitch that's performed in this run was the vendor glitch, where I was giving myself infinite amounts of money. That glitch, for current knowledge, we only know how to do that with mouse and keyboard. Cannot do that with controller at the moment. So a little bit of a problem when the Switch version rolls out. Maybe a problem with vendor glitches, and so we need to split the leaderboards for the Switch if they really cannot do the vendor glitch. But for the casual viewer, if you're just watching this, I highly recommend checking out the other categories, especially NMG. NMG was done, that world record at the time of this recording was done at a marathon, and that was commentated by a friend of mine who goes by Tortalius for his handle, or I like to call him Tort. He does an extremely good job of commentating that whole entire run of 2 hours and 30 minutes. So huge props to him, and go ahead and check out all dungeons if you want a longer category with major glitches. Especially now that all dungeons has become more unique opposed to any percent now. since any percent does not do any dungeons technically. The ones that are at least defined by all dungeons for that category. But I enjoy running this game a whole lot. NMG is usually my main category. I started doing any percent because of the recent discoveries, and it made it a whole lot more enjoyable for sure. Cut out a whole lot more save warps that we had to do, and there was a lot more gameplay to be had, at least proportionally. But I think I'll be looking into other games and not really improving this time. I think I'll settle on a 43, 44. Maybe there'll be another person who will break my record. Hopefully, maybe, soon, TM. Or I'll probably have to wait until the Switch version when those people will be more exposure to speedruns for this game. But yeah, I think I'll be cutting the commentary for here. Thank you guys for watching. Again, check out the other categories. But thank you. See you.